This is the render we are going to create today, and we are not using any pre-made assets. We will build everything from scratch. Starting with modeling the bottle, then adding textures and shaders, setting up clean studio lighting, and finally finishing it off with the compositing. So yeah, let's start building it. Alright, let's start simple. Drop a cylinder. Before doing anything else, bump the vertices from 32 to 64, and trust me, this tiny change makes the bottle look way smoother later. Now just scale it down and shape it roughly like a bottle. Don't worry about the perfection yet, we are just blocking the base form. And yes, don't forget to apply all transform to the model. And now, jump to the edit mode and drop a loop cut right in the center. And then bevel it up and push it almost to the edges of the cylinder. Don't connect them through, just keep a small gap. This is basically going to help us shape the bottle's curve later. And next, switch to face select mode. Select those faces and press I twice to insert them individually. This gives us separate control over each sections, which makes shaping way easier. Now go to the top view and don't deselect anything. Just hit Alt plus S and scale the faces along their normals. It basically pushes everything out evenly, which helps us get that nice bottle form super quickly. Jump back to object mode and add a subdivision surface modifier. At first it's going to look kind of weird and messy, that's totally fine. So let's fix that. Go back to the edit mode and add another loop cut in the middle and bevel it almost to the edges. Don't connect them yet. See, still looks a bit weird, but don't worry about that. First, we will fix the top part of the bottle. Go back to the edit mode and select the top face. Insert it once, then insert it again until it's roughly the size of bottleneck. After that, press G twice to select the edge and position it near the corner. Once it's done, go back to the object mode and increase the level of subdivisions. And now you can see that how our model became way more prettier than it used to be. Alright, now let's work on the lower part of the model. Select the bottom face and insert it. If your viewport starts lagging like mine, just disable the subdivision modifier for now. It makes the editing way smoother. Then insert the face a couple more times to create some supporting edges. Now select those new faces and extrude them downwards to form a base. It looking pretty good now, but the edges still feels a bit soft. Let's sharpen them up by adding a few supporting edge loops, just like this. And yes, you can use bevel also if you want to speed things up. Both ways works perfectly. Now let's move back to the top and work on the bottleneck. Select the top face and extrude it upwards to form the neck. Then, just like we did at the bottom, add a few supporting edge loops to keep the shape nice and sharp. Alright, now let's work on the inner part of the bottle. This might look a little tricky at first, but it's actually pretty simple. Insert the top face of the neck and then extrude it downwards. Now Here's the important trick. Press E to extrude again, but don't move your mouse. Right click to cancel the movement, then press S to scale it. This creates that inner thickness. Let me hide the outer mesh so you can clearly see what's just happened. And now select the face which is scaled and extrude it downwards. The length is totally up to you, just adjust it until it looks right. Once you are happy with it, add a few supporting edge loops to tighten the space. Then start refining the inside of the bottle. Add some bevels, extra edges, and scale things around until it feels good visually. Alright, that's pretty much it for the bottle modeling. Now let's move on the cap. Honestly, this part is way easier compared to everything we just did, so I'm going to speed this up a bit. Alright, before jumping into textures, let's quickly set up the scene. First, scale the model down to a reasonable size and apply the transforms. Then add a plane. Go into edit mode and extrude the back edge upward. After that, add a small bevel too. And just like that, we have got a clean infinite background ready for our render. And finally, let's add a camera and position it nicely. Then set the focal length to around 90 mm to get that clean product shot look with less distortion. And once that's done, we are ready to move on to the textures part. Alright, now to preview our textures, we need some lighting. You can either use Blender's default world light or plug in an HDRI, both works totally fine. It really depends on the kind of look you are going for. Alright, let's jump into the shading tab. Create a new material for the bottle body and name it outer body. Now add a glass BSDF, plug it into the material output and increase the roughness slightly so it doesn't look perfectly sharp. Alright, now let's create a separate material for the inner part of the bottle. Open the material settings and add a new slot. Then name it inner body. After that, jump into edit mode and select all the inner faces. Once it's done, choose the inner body materials and hit assign. And there we go, it applied perfectly. Alright, now let's tweak the shader of the inner body. Set the metallic to 1, drop the roughness to 0. And a reminder, we are not chasing perfect realism here. We are going to whatever looks best in the render. So feel free to tweak the values to your taste. And yes, at last, don't forget to add some colors too. Now for the outer body, just add a bit of color to give it that tinted glass look. As for the cap, it's pretty straightforward. So I'll speed through this part without going into too much details. Alright, now comes the more advanced part of the shading. We are going to use a gradient to control the roughness, which gives us much nicer and more realistic reflections. This way, the bottom stays a bit rough and the roughness gradually decreases as we move up toward the cap. So the bottle gets smoother and shinier at the top. Alright, let's start by adding a gradient texture node. Then hold Ctrl and click on it to preview the texture directly. Then press Ctrl+T to automatically add the texture coordinate and mapping nodes. If this shortcut doesn't work, just enable the Node Wrangler add-on first. Okay, right now the gradient is moving left to right, which we don't need. We want it vertical from the bottom to the top, so the roughness changes along the height of the body. Alright, to fix this, add a separate XYZ node and connect the Z output to the gradient, because we want the gradient to move vertical along the Z direction. And there we go, now it works properly. Next, let's refine it a bit. Add a color ramp so we can control where the roughness starts and ends. And in Blender, black means 0 and white means 1s. So just flip the ramp to invert the effect. But right now the transition look a bit harsh and solid. So change the color ramp interpolation from linear to B-spline. This gives a much smoother and softer gradient. And now just connect the color ramp to the roughness input. And there we go, we have got a clean gradient roughness. Alright, modeling and shadings are done. Now let's jump into scene setup and lighting to really bring this render to life. First, let's create a simple glass base using a default cube. Then for the backdrop, just add a plane and shape it into a clean background. Finally, let's adjust the camera angle. I like placing it slightly lower and tilted it upward so it feels like we are looking at the product and it makes the bottle feel more premium and dominant. And by the way, try using the 3D cursor to position and rotate your camera. It makes framing shots way easier. Alright, let's quickly add materials to the glass base and the background plane. For the glass, lower the roughness, increase the transmission and add a bit of clear coat. This helps catch nicer reflections and makes it feel more premium. By the way, feel free to tweak the values until it looks right to you. Alright, now it's time for the lighting. This is where everything really comes to life. First, let's light up the background. Add an area light and place it facing the background. Adjust the intensity until you get a nice soft glow. Next, add another area light. This will be our main light. Place it on one side of the bottle to shape the form and create strong highlights. Feel free to move it around and tweak the intensity. Finally, add one more light behind the bottle. This acts as a rim light and helps separate the bottle from the background. But you will notice the backlight also affects the glass base. To fix this, select the light, go to the object settings, right linking, and link it only to your model's collection. Now it lights the bottle without touching the glass. By the way, I'm not really liking how rough the bottom looks, so I'll just flip the color ramp to reverse the effect. Okay, our basic lighting is ready. Now it's just small tweaks, moving the lights around, adjusting intensity, you know the drill. So I'm gonna speed up this part while I fine tune everything. Alright, everything is ready. Before jumping into compositing, let's quickly render one frame. Now switch to Compositor and click New to enable nodes. First, add a glare node for that soft glow on the highlights. Then add some sensor noise node. It helps break the perfect digital look and make the render look more realistic. You can also tweak brightness and contrast to fine-tune the overall mood. And at last, after a few small adjustments, this is our final render.